Thank you, Pema. I hope you'll understand my English accent from London. I'll try not to talk too cockney tonight. Yeah, there's someone from London in the house tonight, I'm really pleased. Okay, so that was the update, what we've been up to, and especially as the new international team, that's what we've been up to. And I just want to say a couple of points about what's coming up next. I'm so glad to see so many people out here tonight, and so I just want to ask a question. How many students do we have in the building tonight? Just raise your hands, how many students? Yeah, raise them high, don't be shy. Raise them high, raise them high. Okay, cool. How many parents? How many parents have children in universities? Raise your hands. Raise your hands if you have children in universities. Okay, just a few. Now, my last question is, how many people here have heard about the Confucius Institute? Raise your hands if you've heard about the Confucius Institute. Okay. Decent amount. Now, what I'm going to tell you now is something that's happening in our country, well, United States, and the UK, and across the world. Something's happening in our countries, and it is frightening. It's frightening, and we need to be aware of this, and we need to be concerned about this. Because China is spending millions of dollars to bring Chinese state-run propaganda education from China into our countries, in the USA, in the UK, in Germany, all across the world. They're bringing their lies, they're bringing their propaganda to our colleges, to our universities. They are shutting down discussions on Tibet at universities. They are shutting down His Holiness's voice, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's voice in our universities. This is something that we need to be aware of. We need to be aware of, and we need to be concerned about it, and we need to know this. Because this is a huge threat for our movement. But at the same time, not even just for the Tibetan movement, but this is a threat to even American students for academic freedom. American professors are already, concerned. Students are concerned about this because, already they're petitioning and discussing about this this censorship and these lies and this propaganda. They're talking about this. They see that this is a threat. But how can we eliminate this threat? How can we counter this threat on our doorsteps, in our country? How can we eliminate this? And you might laugh, but I'll tell you the truth, how we can eliminate this in a simple, easy, smart way is through opening an SFT chapter. Seriously, opening a Students for a Free Tibet chapter at your university, your college, your school. If you've got children who go to university, tell them to open a chapter, because that is how you can keep the conversation of Tibet inside the universities. That is how you do it. China might be mighty and strong and they'll have all the money, but we have the people. We have the truth. We have the passion. And we need to insert that and bring it back into our schools and our education. Don't let China take this away from us. So everyone who just put their hands up, and everyone who didn't put their hands up, if you know children who go to universities, really encourage them to open a chapter. Don't be scared to open a chapter. Seriously, don't be. It's easy. You want to talk with SFT? Come, we can mingle tonight, and I can show you how to, start one up. And even if China complain and make a fuss about your chapter and about the noise that you're making about Tibet in your university, that's good. That's a good sign. Because that shows that we are doing our job. China doesn't want to see us in their schools. And then open a chapter. And because maybe you might have, by opening a chapter, we're bringing back the discussion of Tibet, and we're bringing His Holiness back to the universities. Because maybe you might have noticed over the last 3 years, His Holiness hasn't been as invited as much to universities. Why? Because China is putting pressure. This Confucius Institute, they're putting pressure on the university to not invite him. That's the truth. And I'll give you an example. Maybe some of you might remember the Sydney University. Sydney University, this was last year I think, Sydney University invited His Holiness to do a talk on peace and democracy to thousands of students. But the Confucius Institute put so much pressure on the university to cancel the event that the university cancelled the event. That's bleep bleep, that's wrong, right? That's wrong. But this is how they're putting pressure. But when we heard about this, SFT, and we teamed up with the Australian, because obviously Sydney, Australia, we teamed up with Australia Tibet Council. We said this is wrong, we've got to do something. So we mobilized the people around the world, the students, and said, this is wrong, Sydney University, change this, invite His Holiness, do the right thing, stay on the right side of history. And they did it. All that mobilization that we did, they, in the end, brought His Holiness to Dalai Lama. But this is just an example of how they're trying to, take the discussion of Tibet out of our universities. I'm sorry, they took my country, they took our land, but they ain't gonna come here. All right? So together, we're gonna work on this. Okay? We'll be at the table, you can talk with us. And before I leave, another thing that I want to share with you is another campaign that we're working on, is the Unite for Tibet campaign. Now, many of you know about the Unite for Tibet campaign, World Leaders Unite for Tibet. Many of you have been on the streets with us, protesting, petitioning, demanding world leaders to unite for Tibet. And in this campaign, what we're saying in Unite for Tibet, what we're saying is that, it's great that individual governments, especially after the self-immolations and all the crackdowns that are happening inside Tibet, that it's great that the governments are speaking out individually. They're speaking out, they're making statements, public statements condemning China's actions. Those are great and they should continue to do that. But one thing is that what we've realized is that these statements have made no change inside Tibet. Tibetans are still cracked down with harsher and harsher punishments, arrests, shootings. Just last week, 5 shootings, 5 confirmed dead. So what we're saying now is to these leaders is not just to only speak out individually, but to join together, unite together, come together and speak as one voice. Because coming together as one voice creates leverage over China that doesn't currently exist, and leaving no space for China's bullying. This is a campaign, and this campaign's been going on for 4 or 5 years, and world leaders know what we're asking for. They know what we're saying, what we're asking for. But at the same time, they're not acting. So for them to act, what do we need to do? We need to push them, right? We need to keep pushing them to act. And for us to push them to act, we need to believe in the solution. We need to believe in the Unite for Tibet campaign. I believe in the Unite for Tibet campaign. I believe this is a winnable, achievable, and this is the solution for Tibet. And I want you to believe in it too. So that when we go lobbying, this will automatically come out of your mouth. Unite for Tibet, world leaders combined, blah, blah, blah. I want that in your voice. I want that to be embedded in you so that we can make a difference for Tibet. And as someone who's been working on this campaign from the very beginning, I know that it's not always easy to understand what this campaign means or how it can look, right? So at SFT, we made this video, an animated video of really breaking it down, really explaining what this Unite for Tibet campaign can look like. Really want to break it down in simple terms, simple language, so you understand it, and then later you feel it, and then you can go out and talk about it and tell people, and eventually, the more we know, the more we can push, and the more we push, these governments will take action. This is achievable, this is in our power, this is in our hands. We can bring, Tibetans, supporters in exile, we can bring the change to Tibet. We can bring meaningful policy change to Tibet if we believe in what we're saying, and if we do, and if we do it. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking, but this is the video, and many of you have probably seen it, and if you haven't seen it, please, you'll see it now, but when you go home, please rewatch it and share it with your friends on social media and sign the petition and tell people about this. I know it's been difficult the last few years, trust me, it's been difficult, hard, it's hard, and sometimes you think there's no hope. How can we win against, China? But I'm telling you, watch this video and you know how we can win and get back our rights for Tibetans inside Tibet. Thank you. This famous quote by Martin Luther King rings true to this day, especially for Tibetans. My name is Pema and I'm a Tibetan. Growing up in the UK, people were always asking me, where is Tibet? We don't see it on the maps. Yeah, I'd say because my country was stolen by China. Since 1949, when many countries around the world started gaining their independence, Tibet was illegally invaded and occupied by China. And there's not a single day when I wonder when will we get our country back. You see, what's unique about Tibet is our spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, who heads a major religion, Tibetan Buddhism. He is also a widely respected leader for his teachings on compassion, peace, and humanity. And Tibetans? We're fighting the Chinese government non-violently, using the lessons of Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and other heroes of successful non-violent revolutions. And everywhere I go around the world, I meet people, including politicians, who recognize the Tibetan flag and tell me, yes, Tibet should be free, our monasteries should be protected, our ancient culture preserved. They tell me, we are with you. So with all this international support, it's only a matter of time before the world's influential leaders step it up and use the diplomatic tools available to them to hold China accountable, right? Now, I thought this time might have been in 1959 when the Dalai Lama was forced to flee Tibet and hundreds of thousands of Tibetans were killed by the Chinese soldiers. But it wasn't. How about to stop China's aggressive cultural genocide in Tibet? No, that's still going. How about when China announces plans to remove 2.2 million Tibetan nomads off the Tibetan grasslands into reservation camps? You know, similar to what they did to the Native Americans and the Aborigines. No, not even then. Now, over 125 Tibetans have lit their own bodies on fire in protest against China's repression and as a call to the world for help. Now has to be the time. Governments may be speaking up, saying China's crackdown is wrong and should stop, and they should keep doing this. But here's the thing, they're doing this in isolation of each other, and China's not having any of it. Because China isn't a democracy, there is no rule of law, no freedom of speech, no free press. The Chinese government is a bully. They bully their own people, and they definitely bully Tibetans. And now they're bullying our governments into silence. And our leaders are allowing themselves to be bullied. Why? For fear of what? For fear that China will stop doing business with us? Not likely. The proof is in the statistics. All major countries, even those whose governments have met with the Dalai Lama and spoken up for Tibet, are enjoying stronger trade relationships with China today. China's like the big bad wolf in the Three Little Pigs story, who huffs and puffs and threatens to blow the house down. But yet they're empty threats. China doesn't really want to punish our leaders because they need our business. They want international legitimacy. So what's the solution? Well, for starters, it's high time like-minded governments to jointly call on China's bluff, and it's time to unite against the bully. Countries must act together instead of individually. In accordance with our shared values and democratic principles, we can change the way we're engaging on Tibet and be successful. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. By getting together and developing a common approach with shared strategies, our governments can gain leverage over China that doesn't currently exist. The combined voices of many of the world's most prominent leaders has a much greater likelihood of securing concessions from China. Beijing will finally feel the pressure to work towards resolving the crisis in Tibet. And the multilateral nature of this approach provides our government with greater protection from China's punitive reaction. For Tibetans, the situation has never been more critical. For the world, the solution has never been more practical. It's time to unite for Tibet. My name is Pema, and I know we can put Tibet back on the map. Together, we can unite world leaders for Tibet. The time is now.